Yes, I'd like a market fresh grilled chicken salad, please.
All right, that'll be $9.19.
That's a little steep price-wise. Can you do it a little cheaper? Hey, Ritz-Carlton, looking forward to staying with y'all for 4 nights during the July 4th weekend. And I'd like you to be able to, even though I know you're the best, I'd like you to be able to meet Holiday Inn's price. Hello, is this Apple? Yeah, I'd like to get a new iPhone, and I was just curious if you have any upcoming sales. Well, that didn't work out too well. It seems to me like the best brands, they know their why, their value, and they don't apologize for their higher price tag. Today, we'll be joined by former sports agent, podcast host, public speaker, and author, Molly Fletcher. Molly's a master negotiator. She's here to help you better understand your value, your why, so you too can negotiate like a champion. Best. It's the place where we all want to go. Today, our focus is to help all of us get there in our professional lives. Today, we'll grow our understanding of better defining our why we matter in business, and we'll get better at delivering that message to the people who might indeed care, our potential customers. I emphasize potential customer because not every potential customer will become our customer. They have to care about our why. Today, we simply want to learn how to connect and convert every potential customer who does care about why we matter. We want to become better at negotiation. And so we invited an expert on the topic. After all, she wrote a book on the topic called A Winning Guide to Negotiating: How a Conversation Gets Deals Done. Molly Fletcher, welcome to Personal and Professional Best.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. So this is one of those topics that everybody believes they know what negotiation is, but most people never had a class on it. And if you're in the business of having conversations to help persuade, win customers, maybe it's a good idea we stop just for a second and start with defining it. So Webster's, because I looked it up, said that it's a discussion aimed at reaching an agreement. How do you define it?
You know, to me, it's everywhere. Negotiation is everywhere, and it's a conversation. At the end of the day, when you really break it down, it's a conversation. Now, it can be a difficult conversation. It can be a challenging conversation. But at the end of the day, it's a conversation. It's about two people engaging in a conversation to potentially solve a problem for one another. So to me, when we keep that front and center, and I talk about negotiation as being something that is everywhere. I think we certainly negotiate deals, we negotiate financial situations, but I think at the end of the day, we negotiate our time, our resources, where we spend our energy, all those things. And, you know, I'm a big fan of the more you practice having these kinds of conversations in all areas of your life, the better that you get, the more confident that you get.
Like anything else, you just got to get comfortable having sometimes uncomfortable conversations, right?
That's right.
Asking questions and basically probing maybe information from someone else so that you can figure out whether or not they could be your customer. Is it the intention, having the conversation, to win something? Is negotiation about winning something, or is it about exploring in a conversation how you get to a place where there's win-win?
Yeah. You know, I think it's the latter, right? I think if you want to do a deal with somebody once, then sure, focus on the transaction and focus on winning. But if you want to focus on doing deals with this person, potentially multiple deals over and over again, to me, that's when you want to approach it more relationally, less transactionally, more in the spirit of really, truly solving a problem for them, adding value to their lives, closing a gap in their world. To me, that's the angle in which you want to come in at it. And it's a different mindset. I think if we're thinking about beating somebody up, about pounding it in, about getting on the other side of the table and letting them have it, it's probably going to be a one and done deal.
You know, I'm not the average person. Not any better than anybody else, but I'm wired a little bit different. Before we got started, I talked to you about how I've always bought cars. And that is that, you know, most men particularly, they're the negotiator when they go to buy a car, you know, go get them. And mine was always, I didn't want to make anyone feel uncomfortable. And I indeed wanted the person that was actually serving me to make a profit.
Right.
Because I'm wanting people to make a profit. They have spouses and children, responsibilities, and I want them also to look at me as someone who is worthwhile to have as a customer. So I would always tell people, look, I don't know the right price to pay for this car, but I want you to make a profit. I do want you to know God is watching. So when you decide what that profit is, but whatever you decide it is, I'll agree to pay for it. Not everybody operates like that. There's a lot of people that operate in life to where they're just trying to get what they want and not worried about the consequences of all that. But let's get back to the topic that we're here to talk about, which is negotiating. Simon Sinek, he wrote a book, Start With Why. It's a book that I really love because most people, entrepreneurs that start businesses, or most people that are in business today, whether you haven't started it or you're in it, haven't really asked a question, which is, if they didn't show up tomorrow, the business didn't show up tomorrow, would anyone care? Essentially, why they and or the business matters. And I think when we give thought to that, you know, the answer ought to be that we do have a real idea why it matters, and that's based on needs being met by customers. I'd like to think about Chick-fil-A. You know, they play a role in what they call the quick food restaurant business. And they provide an exceptional service. The Ritz-Carlton, they understand their why and why they matter. They make you feel like when you're traveling and you're exhausted, they make you feel like you got home except with nicer sheets even, right?
Sure.
Apple matters an awful lot, but they're not trying to convince everyone to buy a phone. They know their customer is limited. So they all know their why. And what else is in common with them? They all charge a premium for their services, and they all get it. Our realtor partners that are likely watching today, there is a real estate commission of 3%. That's the highest you'll generally ever hear. And there's lots of other people, particularly nowadays, the advent of digital, that are charging less. Mm-hmm. Our business has always been like that. There's a range of people in the mortgage industry charging less or more, and we don't charge less. And we charge what we think is the right and fair price for the value of what we deliver. Is every customer that calls us, is it true that they should become a customer? Or is it really true that there is, prior to them calling, what they value and what our why is, that there may be a connection or there may not be a connection?
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Well, so I was a sports agent for almost 20 years, Pat. So we had about 300 athletes and coaches. We had a team of agents serving our clients. And I didn't want to represent everybody. You know, there's 750 big league guys. We didn't need them all to make a nice living and make an impact in their lives and in the business. There's a lot of college coaches, a lot of NBA coaches. There's, you know, a ton of guys out on the PGA Tour and LPGA Tour, women. And so, but I didn't need them all. We didn't want them all. They all weren't a fit. And, you know, a lot of times people would come up, I played tennis in college, and say, Molly, don't you want to work in tennis? I mean, you played, you love the sport. But it didn't make sense for us to go there when there was so much opportunity inside of the verticals that we were in, but also inside of relationships where there was alignment. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of times where my phone would ring, which didn't happen a lot as an agent, candidly. I mean, it's a business. Some people say there's more agents than athletes to represent. So it's incredibly competitive. So at the end of the day, it was about saying, can I align on the expectations out of the gate? Can I over-deliver to this individual? Is this a person that on a Saturday afternoon when I'm pushing my daughters in a swing and I see their name on my phone, I want to take their call? Yeah. And those were the kinds of relationships that we wanted to have. And those were the kind of relationships that had mutual respect, where they saw the value that we were providing consistently, as did we see incredible value in our relationship with them. So I would say very confidently, no. I mean, Chick-fil-A is not trying to serve everybody. The Ritz-Carlton isn't, Apple's not trying to serve everybody. I think we have to know what we stand for. We have to know our lane. We have to know who we solve and serve in the world and lean into that hard and authentically.
So when you got a phone call, initial phone call, were you interviewing them as much as they were interviewing you to determine whether or not, if they called someday on Saturday when you were walking your baby, that you would actually want to answer the phone?
I was, and I think at some level too, I was also, I would bounce, the business of sports is so small, and this may or may not be relevant, but to me, I would also ask people that I worked with, other clients of mine, hey, is this guy a good guy? Like if I was to come see you in whatever city when you're playing for the Cubs, could we all go to dinner together?
Sure.
What is that relationship like there? And I would get some insight from them as well and really valued that. I really wanted to look at it like a family.
So I think most people that are in sales, they operate like most people in life, from scarcity. So when the phone rings, they see a dollar sign. And my wiring is, I want to serve people.
Right.
And I don't have a purpose to make the most money. I always tell people that if your purpose is to make money, if you put that on your business card, it won't sell very well.
Right.
Right? Because who you're actually representing your services to want you to provide a service to them. The consequences, you make money, right? So to the extent that most salespeople operate out of scarcity, I think they pass right through the idea that we should be deciding whether we fit together, a potential customer and our why and our service. That makes sense?
100%. I mean, I think that you absolutely have to make sure you're locked and loaded with this individual, that you're listening enough, that you're curious enough. I believe curiosity is one of the most underrated, sort of pushed, if you will, sales skills. I mean, if you're getting curious, if you're listening, if you're getting in their head and heart, if you're really wanting to understand the gap you're trying to close for them, then you're grabbing all that information from asking great open-ended questions. You're taking that information in and being what I call an authentic chameleon. You're listening, but then you're delivering the kind of information that you've heard matters most to them.
Well, you said just a few minutes ago that you played tennis. I didn't know that, right? So if I was being curious with you, as a service provider or a potential service provider, what I think I'm hearing you say is that we need to ask questions so that we can get more information about who it is, so we can determine whether we are a fit. But those questions lead to the possibilities of finding things in common with another human being and really being able to, at a time in their life, they're buying a home. At a time in their life, they may be moving from one city to another. They may even be taking cheerleaders out of high school to relocate.
Yeah.
And for us, focusing on it from strictly a mortgage or financial standpoint misses the possibility of actually doing something that I think most service providers and service people don't do all that much, which is really lean in and be curious and care.
Exactly.
And care.
Exactly. I mean, you got to, when I was recruiting a player, I mean, it was sometimes 6-month, 12-month, 24-month sales cycle. So, I know that your associates get phone calls and sometimes it leads to a transaction and sometimes it doesn't. But how do you stay in their world? How do you listen so much that you're in their world? And now we live in a world that's so great. I mean, you can stay connected with people in so many ways. Anticipate things. I had a PGA Tour player once that was looking to switch agents, and he had come up to the office and we had met with him and we had a great meeting. He sort of sat at the head of the table and we talked about all the things that we could do in his world, and we listened and we asked questions. We did all those things. And then one of the things, though, that I heard that was that he would love to play on the Ryder Cup team, and boy, if he ever got selected, it'd mean everything to him. And it would mean so much to his family and to his parents. Well, 2 weeks later, he got selected for the Ryder Cup team. Now it was an opportunity for me to, at some level, I sort of say, act like you have the business before you have the business, right? Behave in a way that sends a message to this individual. This relationship really matters. In fact, I'm going to give you a little taste of what this might look like, right? And there's lots of ways that we can do that through creativity, through curiosity. And, you know, we solved for that. We served him inside of that Ryder Cup without having had the business yet. And then he switched over.
You know, in our business, we talk to customers all the time about how much money they make and other things, but getting out of the financial side of things and finding something out about their life or other things about their life, about their relationship, where they grew up, and, you know, everything communicates.
Yeah.
And to the extent that they're talking to us, we can find dialect is communicating. But when people feel like you care about them, when they know that that happens, their guards come down and you actually get to know them in a different way. And I think that's what I hear you saying. So there's this idea that first impressions matter in life. And I think we all understand that that's true. That when we first meet someone, what we think in terms of when we view them physically and how we kind of talk to start with, why we're meeting with them. But the other thing is that in our business, just like yours, someone else, a third party, is actually created the first impression. Because this is the first time we'll talk or meet, but someone else said, you should call this person at Supreme Lending or at Keller Williams or at Better Homes and Gardens if you want to buy or sell a home or get a mortgage. Because, so that really, what they say after the because is the first impression.
Sure.
And then we either meet and exceed that when they actually have it with us or not. So I'm going to ask you the question I just answered. Do first impressions matter?
They do. I mean, they do. And I think to your point around how often that first impression is coming from somebody else, you know, when I recruited, for example, baseball players, I would always send them things. If I needed to send them their batting gloves or their spikes or their bats, or even sometimes I'd surprise them with a set of golf clubs or whatever, I'd always send it to the clubhouse. And I'll never forget, I had a minor league guy and he was coming through the minor leagues with a couple other stud baseball players, and he was hitting about 210. He was really struggling. He was partying too much in the minor leagues, and he was struggling. And he was lockering next to a couple other guys, and he opens the set of golf clubs. And this first round guy looks at him and goes, dude, you're horrible. You're hitting 210. You know, I mean, you are absolutely pathetic. And your agent sends you golf clubs. When can I meet with her?
Right.
And so he was the first, and I was that first impression was
right there.
Right there.
Yeah.
And he created and opened that door from a referral perspective, if you will. So I couldn't agree with you more. First impressions matter. And I would think about who are the people that are a part of that opportunity for you.
Yep.
And how can you consistently over-deliver to them day after day after day, authentically, and add value.
Yeah, and you know, we work really diligently here to shape our why and to shape our message specific to the why. I think we would do well to spend more time making sure that those that are referring us refer us using that why specifically, so that they're calling for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
So we're kind of qualifying the call to start with.
Sure.
And then further, when we respond in kind with the why, that's been part of the referral first impression process, that we're connected, right? Because I'm calling you because I heard, and now I'm talking to you, and it's true.
Yeah.
And that's why I called to start with.
Sure.
So the first impression matters. We live in a world today where people have gotten so accustomed to not communicating in person, right?
Sure.
And when someone's buying as a athlete, they're buying an agent, a very personal representation. They're going to spend a lot of money,
Sure.
and they're buying you representing them, right? In our case, they're going through it. One of the most 10 most stressful experiences in one's lifetime. Oftentimes it's in the top 5, which is moving. And the idea that they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on a home, and they're spending a lot of money on a mortgage. They're spending a lot of money. It's similar. I mean, they really want that person to make it personal. We compete a lot, all of us do now, in the digital world. And we're in the brick and mortar world, so it's got to be even more personal. What do you say to folks who the first call comes in and it's a new potential client, and you click them to voicemail, or you text them back, "I'm busy, call you later"? What do you say to them?
If you want to lose a deal, send them to voicemail. If you want to lose a deal, send them to a website. I mean, to me, there is something so powerful in people communicating, and we can't send people to websites. We can't send people to voicemail. I mean, I'll be honest with you, my athletes, I don't even think they knew what my voicemail sounded like. Literally. They didn't go to voicemail. And I'm not sure that, I mean, I used to sleep with my phone. I had my pajamas with pockets in it, so I had my phone with me, and I'm not sure that's something to sort of raise a, green flag around, but we have to connect. And when we can get somebody on the phone, we can get curious. We can ask great questions. We can listen. We can get in their world and know what drives them, because sometimes the things that drive somebody are so far from what our assumptions about what might matter to them really are. I mean, the things that sometimes would drive a player to in free agency to switch a team, or a golfer to switch balls, or hat bag deal, whatever it might be, it was so different often than the world would make assumptions around.
And you were just being curious about that person and their story.
Absolutely.
And their specific drive, so that you don't make any assumptions that theirs is like everyone else's, because it's not.
No, and you can't get that information via email. You can't get that kind of information via text, or even on social media, or even on LinkedIn. I mean, you can get some high-level surface stuff that everybody else is getting, but as you and I have said before, if you do everything else like everybody else, you're going to get everybody else's results.
And we don't want that.
And that's what we want. So I think more than ever, you've got to pick up the phone and call them. You've got to connect. And I think, I'm a big fan of, serve, and then you maybe ask. And then serve, add value, and then maybe you ask. But you deliver value to a point. I mean, when I would recruit a baseball player, or a golfer, or a college coach, or an NBA coach, or a LPGA player, I would over-deliver so much that no was sort of impossible. How could you say no? How could you even ask about fees? Because I've given you a sense for what this relationship's going to be like.
Sure, you've given them a reason.
Sure.
Right, and what they want to know is that exchange, that first impression exchange, and any follow-up exchanges, that is going to be the way they're going to see the relationship long-term, that you genuinely care for them. It's funny, because in our world today, someone picks up the phone and calls someone else, subtly, they want you to answer.
Yeah.
They didn't call you to get your voicemail.
No.
They didn't call you to get a text.
Sure.
And they didn't call to have someone answer who's harried, who seems to be distracted by a lot of other things. They want it to be about them in that moment, particularly when they're trying to get a new agent.
Yep.
Right?
For sure.
Or an agent. Or when they're trying to buy a home, get a mortgage. I mean, they have a full-time life and a full-time job, and now they have this other full-time thing going on in their life.
Yeah.
Whether it's playing baseball or golf or tennis, or whether it's working in any number of industries and then buying a home with us, or going through us for the mortgage. So answer the phone.
No question. And the other thing that you're touching on that I think is important to point out is, and then be present.
Thank you so much for being here today and being a part of our program. And we'll look forward to having you back again.
I loved it. It was fun. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Molly, for offering your insights to all of us today. Molly will be back next month to finish our conversation and offer you even more strategies to help you negotiate like a champion. Best is waiting. Meet you there.